Hey everyone, welcome to today's video where we're going to talk about living in Korea on a student budget. Of course, you will already know your tuition fees and your dormitory fees if you're going, but I'm going to talk about some of the other stuff. So first up, if you don't want to live in the dorms, there's actually several options. There's something called Hasukjip, which I lived in, and that's basically like a boarding house. You'll find them all around most universities in Korea, and they tend to be more affordable. I lived in a Hasukjip for quite a while, I think almost 2 years. In the beginning, I lived with a friend of mine, and we shared a double. Quite a small room, but we had our own private bathroom, our own beds, our own desks, and our own little clothing areas. So she actually went somewhere else after a while, and I moved to a single room, which was actually kind of nice because I could get my privacy. The other big option people do is a really small studio apartment, and you'll also find those around the major universities. Hasukjip and apartments typically have something called kimani or chonse, which it's not quite like a security deposit in the States where we pay 1 or 2 months rent in advance. It's actually putting down anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. The way that works is if you give $1,000, the owner might say, okay, then pay $500 rent per month. Though they might have another option where they say, okay, you can put a key money deposit of $3,000 and pay $400 rent per month. That way, the more money you can put down as key money, typically the lower your rent is going to be. I was pretty lucky in that I managed to find a Hasukjip that didn't have this kind of situation, and I just paid a month's rent in advance, kind of like a security deposit. Next up, I want to talk about phones because that's actually a really common question people have. So, because of certain laws and instances in the past, people on student visas, that's a D4 or a D2 visa, can't really get a phone contract in Korea. So now you kind of have to go for a prepaid or pay-as-you-go plan. And these aren't that bad. The only trick is getting a phone. I was lucky enough to have an unlocked phone before I went to Korea, so I just had to buy a SIM card. Now, my plan was basically paying about $15 per month for 1 gigabyte of data. And then for texting and calling, I would put down about $50 every 4 or 5 months. I just reserved texting and calling for emergencies only. A lot of the time, if your Korean friend is using the same company as you, they can call you for free. So I was using Olay, which has a store actually in Yonsei dormitories, and they have a nice big international store in Hongdae. I pretty much liked their plans. They were easy to use, very straightforward, and I could get my stuff set up in like 20 or 30 minutes the first time I went. If you don't have your own unlocked phone, it's okay. You can buy them in the States for pretty decent prices depending on what you want, and you can buy them once you get to Korea. There's sites online that you can use to find them. I highly recommend getting a Korean friend to help you out because sometimes they are hard to navigate, but it was pretty straightforward otherwise. Let's talk about food. So I know we're all students on a budget, and Korea has a lot of delicious things. Now the good thing is, if push comes to shove, most people can get by eating out at a really decent price. So for example, getting a dish that's solangtang, which is meat with noodles and broth, would be about $3 or $4, and in other universities it might be $2 or $3 or less. And if you're looking for variety around all the universities, our restaurants targeted towards students, where you'll find food anywhere between $3 to $7, and of course above. You know, you'll always find more expensive things, but there were a lot of options, $5 and under, right in front of Yonsei. So don't worry if you're on a budget, you can still eat a lot of different foods, and they're really, really good. All right, let's talk coffee because a lot of students really go through the coffee. The name brand chains are going to be charging about $5 for your most basic Americano. Drip coffee is really hard to find, but amazingly, McDonald's has drip coffee for like 80 cents, and it's actually really good, and they'll serve it to you cold. So if you're really hankering for some drip coffee and you don't want to spend much money, McDonald's is the way to go. There are some Korean brand stores that are targeted towards students, such as Idia Coffee, which will be a little bit cheaper. And you can always find an Idia near a Starbucks because that's their marketing plan. Every time a Starbucks opens, you will find an Idia within a month or 2 in the general vicinity, if not sooner. Also, by the way, most universities have university-run cafes that have actually pretty decent prices. All right, guys, let's talk about something more serious, medical. Now, I lived in Korea for 3 years. Of course, I got sick here and there, and at first I was really worried about paying for the medical expenses. This should not have been a big worry of mine. Let's give a concrete example. It was $5 to talk to the student clinic doctor who spoke English, Korean fluently. She was amazing. And then she prescribed a Z-Pack, and that was $17. And some cold medicine as well, because my throat was killing me. That was $25, okay? In the States, that would have been at least $100, if not more. I know the price for basic ER admission at the Yonsei Severance Hospital, which has an international clinic, is about $200. So that's actually not bad when you compare it to the American system. Especially if you have national health care insurance in Korea, which you can get as a foreigner, everything becomes pretty much 50% off. There's a bit more nuances to that, but they'll explain it to you as you apply. In addition, I know that most orientations for international programs will go through different private insurance options that you can get that are very affordable if you choose to do so. Last but not least by a long shot is transportation. The public transportation in Korea is freaking amazing. There's buses at the neighborhood level, the district level, the city level, and the inner city level, and it's like $1 or $2 to take a bus across the city. Like, that's just great for me. Subway rides are also integrated into the same system the buses are, so you can transfer from a bus to a subway ride, to a different subway line, to a bus, and it's actually all the same fare. It could build up to $3 or $4 if you're really going quite far, but I still think that's quite reasonable. The only thing is, I think your transfers are limited to 5 transfers, and then they'll charge you a new fare. The intercity train lines are also great. I took an hour-long ride for a day trip with Gio, and we both paid about $6 for our tickets one way, so that's actually pretty good. Taxis are cheap. It is great, and especially if you're splitting the fare. So the nice thing about taxis is their base fare is only a couple dollars. Of course it goes up at night, but that's really normal. And by mile, it's not too bad. I've taken a taxi ride that was about 25 minutes getting across Seoul. It was about $20. No big deal, right? So taking taxis everywhere in a group is actually possibly cheaper than taking public transportation, but there's traffic. There is a lot of traffic in the big cities. Seoul is just a pain to drive in, so when you do take taxis, be aware that it could take quite a long time to go somewhere that the subway could get to in 1/3 of the time. So that takes a little bit of planning. All right, guys, I hope you found this helpful for your planning or your thoughts on studying abroad in Korea. If you have any questions, please put them down below. I actually really enjoy answering them. And I'll see you guys next time. So, bye.